We're going to start at tripsitter.com and an article written by Dan Sims entitled The Bizarre History of MKUltra and CIA Mind Control. Mr. Sims begins, a faction of the American government, the CIA or Central Intelligence Agency, once experimented with psychedelics on unknowing citizens in a top-secret project called MKUltra. Below we'll be discussing how MKUltra was started, the goal of its experiments, and the harrowing twists and turns the experiments took until they were defunded in 1973. The project began in 1953, when American government officials were concerned that their opponents in the Cold War were reportedly using psychedelics to gain mind control over prisoners of war. The project lasted 20 years, when details of the experiments were leaked to officials throughout the CIA and other government branches. By 1975, a full investigation was underway on the project, and its history, and its leaders. MKUltra started in an effort to master mind control before other countries during the Cold War. Researchers at the time believed they could use psychedelics and extreme torture methods to destroy a person's ego. Once the ego was dissolved, repeated messages, ideas, and mantras could be fed to the subject to build a new ego with a decided purpose. Sidney Gottlieb is often regarded as the father of MKUltra. He was the researcher and chemist in charge of the experiments and is credited with bringing lysergic acid to America. With the direction of Sidney Gottlieb, countless experiments took place under MKUltra. Other medicines used for experimentation included psilocybin and psilocin, mescaline, barbiturates, amphetamines, heroin, MDMA. Zombie D, thanks for the super chat. Zombie says, I don't have night terrors. Just watch Night Terrors. Oh, he advises us not to have night terrors. Just to watch Night Terrors. Thank you, Zombie D. And my apologies to the people in the audience who do have night terrors. It is no laughing matter. In addition to psychedelics, researchers working under MKUltra also used torture, electroshock therapy, and psychological manipulation. The experiments persisted for about 20 years. Many test subjects did not know they were being tested and were secretly administered psychedelics, or exposed to psychological torture unwillingly. Below are some of the more famous experiments carried out. Early experimentation consisted of dosing subjects with LSD and either watching how they reacted or attempting to put ideas or mantras in their minds as a preliminary form of mind control. The researchers went on to more intense forms of testing and torture after deciding that LSD was too unpredictable and unreliable. Around 1953, Sidney Gottlieb set out to buy the entire world's supply of lysergic acid for experimentation. He reportedly financed his purchase with nearly $250,000 of government funds from the CIA and proceeded to purchase LSD from any source he could find. Once procured, Gottlieb began distributing it in many different settings to see its effect in various doses. His earliest experiments included dosing college students and inmates to see how they were affected. Perhaps one of the most disturbing facts about MKUltra is that many of the experiments were carried out with test subjects who did not know what they were taking. The effects of lysergic acid, especially any long-term effects, were largely unknown at the time. But the lack of research did not stop Gottlieb from giving the drug to anyone he could. Famously, Ken Kesey, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, accepted LSD indirectly from Gottlieb and began carrying out tests of his own. His experiments, which he called acid tests, involved offering lysergic acid to fellow college students at parties to see how it changed their perception and mood. Gottlieb had many ways of procuring new human test subjects for his experiments. One of his earlier methods was using patients of mental institutions and hospitals for people with drug addiction. Early on, he used patients at the Addiction Research Center in Kentucky who were already addicted to drugs. Many of them were unaware that these experiments were taking place. Whitney Bulger was the leader of the Winter Hill Gang in Massachusetts. Or is it Bulger? After Bulger was arrested, he agreed to become a test subject in the MKUltra program to have his sentence reduced. He was told that the drug was for treating schizophrenia. He was dosed with lysergic acid more than 50 times, according to his own reports. Bulger was eventually released from prison, but returned for numerous counts of murder following his treatment. He recalled in letters from jail that the doctor who administered his dose of acid and monitored his reaction would repeatedly ask him leading questions, including if he would ever consider killing anyone. Most people look back at the Axis powers of World War II and acknowledge that their actions towards other human beings, specifically in concentration camps, were inhumane, grotesque, and often unimaginable. What many Americans do not know is that the CIA called on these torture specialists who worked within those camps to help them carry out experiments for MKUltra. Gottlieb and his team of researchers not only mimicked many of the experiments that took place in concentration camps of World War II, but also hired so-called experts in human experimentation as consultants for the tests. Some of the more grotesque and unbelievable MKUltra experiments took place outside of America, mainly in Western Europe and Canada. Gottlieb is noted to have carried out extensive experimentation in Europe. Reportedly, he and his team of researchers, sought out criminals, both convicted and soon to be convicted, and got them to agree to testing in exchange for reduced sentences. In some cases, they proceeded with testing, even if the subjects refused. His tests included offering them high doses of psychedelics, depriving them of sleep for days at a time, using electroshock stimulation repeatedly to try to break down their sense of self, and a variety of other torturous methods.